Good evening, Hatman. How you doing, bro? Okay, getting two people in now. Still adjusting. Got to find a comfy spot. Okay. Apparently my connection's unstable. All good. That's good to hear. What did this Wednesday have in store for you? I had to remind myself which day it was just then. Yeah, I came down because I've got I've just moved into a new room and I've got some blackout curtains, and they do a pretty good job of blocking the light out. I came downstairs about midday, and all I see is this yellow tint, and I'm wondering what the hell is going on. You know, you kind of you rub your eyes at first because it can look so surreal, but yeah, apparently it's some desert storm. We're led to believe. Um, yeah, I mean, I can believe it. To be fair, every car down my road is covered in sand, so yeah, might still be some shenanigans going on with that though. Yes, G man, how you doing? Hope you guys can stay for a little bit. I promise it does usually pick up. Okay, the sky is dark. I need to go have a look. It's been a little while since I've looked out the window. I'm gonna go check it out. Bear with me. Just stuck my head out the window. All I can see is kind of a dark blue sky, so nothing interesting from my window. Um, yeah, yeah. So Regis Prograde versus Tyro Mckenna. I'm kind of looking forward to that one. I have to say, I don't. I really like Regis Prograde. He's actually one of my favorite active fighters to watch. Tyro Mckenna. That being said, I expect Regis Prograde to beat Mckenna, but I think it'll be interesting. Um, Tyron McKenna, I haven't seen too much of him. I remember watching the Jack Catterall fight, and uh, he he didn't. He's like, I feel like that you get like a good representation of what he's like as a fighter from that fight. Um, are you dissing the fight, guys? I don't think it's that bad. You know, I think it's all right. Yeah, Sonny Edwards. Sonny Edwards. Uh, did he lose to O'Hara? I think he lost to O'Hara Davis on like a majority decision. Let me just double check that because I remember they had that fake beef as well. Yeah, yeah, he lost to O'Hara Davis by majority decision over 10. Um, yeah, I'm not a massive fan of watching O'Hara Davis. I have to be honest, and I've known O'Hara for years as well. So it was always a bit tricky because I wanted him to do well because he is actually a pretty nice guy. You know, he's not how he comes across in the media. He's a good guy, but yeah, Sonny Edwards. Yeah, what is Sonny Edwards on? Because look, I understand he's from Croydon, but I haven't seen him act like this before. He's coming out all guns blazing. So yeah, let's check this card because it's in Dubai as well. Because Sonny Edwards is facing a guy from Pakistan. Yeah, so Ahara Davis, that is. um, I first met him when I was around the time I started boxing, so I was like 13. So I've known him for a long time. He probably, you know, I was just some little scrub, but he used to come down to the club that I first started boxing at, which is just a small club. But the guy who started it, he was always like really eager to get like fighters to come in and talk to us. So like met O'Hara. I think that was early, so that was like 2012. Um, the two brothers, the Greek brothers, from North London, I believe. Chris knows them. Oh, he knows of them. I don't know if he knows them personally, but yeah. And so I've met O'Hara a few times, and he's a good guy, you know. But it became a bit of a tricky one because the more the bigger the bigger platform he got onto, you know, he started to the Evangeli brothers. That's it. Those two. I think I met those two the following year or something. Um, but yeah, O'Hara, he started to talk a lot of trash, and it was a bad look, you know, because then he was going to come in and start talking to kids, and like, it wasn't a good look. I also met uh, Prince Patel as well. I think I was around 16. Yeah, Chris and Andreas, and it was kind of like, oh wow, like the first professional boxers I've ever met. Um, But yeah, I met Prince Patel as well. I can't remember which year that was. I think that was like 2014. But it was after he did that interview on IFL talking about his knob. So that wasn't a good look either. And he insisted, just to give you like an insight into what Prince Patel is like as a person, he is quite similar to how he comes across in camera. Like he came to the club and nobody really knew who he was, and he insisted on giving like these teenagers like myself and others signed photographs. I've actually still got it. I was clearing out my drawer earlier, and I've still got the autographed picture of Prince Patel from his first fight. um yeah, so he's a real character, I'll say that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Sonny Edwards though. I have no idea. Like, he's just maybe he's just trying to promote his fight, because it's not like there are going to be many people tuning in. So um, I think Sonny Edwards is kind of going down the Marmite character route, because look, he's fighting Muhammad Wasim. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. 12-1 from Pakistan. Yeah, fighting him in Dubai. Yeah, you know, some obscure flyweight. Maybe he's just trying to stir something up, or maybe he does have legitimate beef with McGuigan, or maybe it's a bit of both. Maybe he doesn't like McGuigan. He's like, you know, I'm going to pick on this guy to promote my fight. So who knows? Who knows? But what I will say is Shane McGuigan. I like Shane McGuigan as a fighter, as a trainer. I think you know, he's done well for himself. You know, there's clearly something there. He has a good deal of boxing knowledge, and he's quite calm as well. Like, he has a good balance of calmness and urgency from what I've seen of him over the years. But he does seem a bit standoffish at times, you know. He's like, in interviews, he doesn't, because obviously he's a young guy, but he doesn't seem very what's the words? I don't know if I can really put it into words, but for someone who's young, he's quite serious, you know? That's the vibe I get. Like, look at the look in his eyes and stuff like that, and the way he talks. It's yeah, just a bit standoffish, I think. So I could understand if, you know, behind the scenes maybe he's rubbed some people up the wrong way, and um yeah, when was it? I think it's when he was talking about Joshua and like the potential for Joshua taking him on as a trainer, and he was adamant. He's like, no, it's like it's my way or the highway. Um, there's more going on with him than he lets on. Yeah, probably. You know, I don't know what Sonny Edwards is saying is true, but that's talk about dirt. You know, um, yeah, he seems, you know, very headstrong. Like he's not willing to budge on much, and you know, I mean that's his prerogative. You know, if he's got his camp of fighters, he doesn't want any extras. You can't argue with that, but yeah, bit standoffish. Uh, right, getting a few more people come through. I just want to check: is my audio okay? Is there like a delay? Is it distorted? Because I'm not getting any more warnings about my connection, so I'm going to assume that's okay. Yeah, I'm looking at this card. Um, Sonny Edwards versus Mohammed Wasim. Regis Prograde versus Tyro Mckenna. Yeah, and not much else. So there's only one name or two names there that I recognize, and that's okay. It's all good. That's good to hear. TJ Doheny, can't say I'm clamoring to see him fight. um, Peter McGrail, super bantamweight. He's a prospect. I remember seeing him as an amateur, and they used to call him like the Merseyside, or they probably still do, the Merseyside Lomachenko. And it's just like, ugh, it's a bit cringe when they say things like that. But yeah, this is kind of like almost like a next gen show, because so you got Hovhannes Bachkov. Um, he's 2-0. Then you've got someone who's 11-0, then another 2-0, then 8-1, 4-0, 2-0, 2-0. Those are the records that we're looking at. Don't think there's ever been a good card in Dubai. Strange, since Saudi has had some good ones. Yeah, I feel like, is this an MTK card, or is it? Oh no, the promoter's Pro Bellum. Okay. Um, wasn't Carl Frampton versus Herring? Wasn't that in Dubai? I think it was somewhere in the Middle East. I can't remember exactly if it was in Dubai. But yeah, it's kind of strange how every now and then these cards in the Middle East kind of pop up. So I don't know. Maybe like, I don't know which venue it is. It says a duty-free tennis stadium. Um, I don't know if that's a small venue or not, but it is a stadium. Because are they going to pack it out, or is it a smaller venue that they're just going to charge an arm and a leg for, and know that the Arabs will pay? Because you know they do love a bit of boxing, don't they? Duty-free tennis stadium. Let's have a look at this place. Yeah, so this stadium apparently is only 5,000. It's only a 5,000 seater. So what are they going to get, an extra 1,000 seats? Um, maybe not even that. Probably like 500 or something. Yeah. So Frampton versus Herring. Let me check on BoxRec. Um, I know it was. I know for a fact it was in the Middle East. I just can't remember whether it was in Dubai. But yeah, so this card on Saturday, this Probellum card is going to be taking place in a 5,000 seat stadium. So I imagine the tickets are going to be pretty pricey. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I've just checked on BoxRec. Jamel Herring versus Carl Frampton was in Caesar's Palace, Dubai. So yeah, another one in Dubai. So I've finally got round to watching Conlan versus Wood just before I came onto this live stream because I've been so busy recently. I haven't had a chance to watch the fights, let alone make videos on them. So I thought I'd address it in this live stream. Man, talk about getting the business. Like, I think I had Mick Conlan sweeping like the first 7 rounds, and then he started to look a bit ragged from the 8th. So yeah. I can't say I'm really too surprised though, because in my pre-fight video, I I was kind of like scratching my head at the whole notion that Lee Wood was this super underrated fighter who's like got bags of talent. I mean, I heard rumors that he's quite a good puncher, like it's like serious puncher, even though his record doesn't suggest it. And I thought, okay, there's probably some legitimacy to that. But I just felt that the Can Zoo fight, Can Zoo was appalling. So you're gonna look skilled and technical against him because he was just terrible. Um, so, but that being said, I didn't think the gap between him and Conlon would be that big because Conlon, like early on, was beating him up. Wasn't even close. But I think I think Carl Froch has finally found someone worthy of the title of Sheriff of Nottingham. So, and to be fair, you have to give it to Lee Wood. Like the heart he showed was remarkable to get dropped like that in the first round, because he could have been counted out. Like he looked out of it, and even in the rounds afterwards, he was taking a shellacking, but somehow he just came through and starched Conlon like that in the last round. You know, of all the rounds, and it was the last one. Like that's very Carl Froch-esque. You know, that's something the Cobra would do. Um, so yeah, still got to give it up to Lee Wood. Like that performance, that was like a real rocky performance. But yeah, technically, yeah, it's just unsurprising. He's just not that great. I actually want to see the featherweight rankings. Let's have a look. Featherweight. Okay. All right. So this is obviously BoxRec rankings. So take it with a pinch of salt because it's on that abysmal points ranking system, which doesn't make any sense. Ahead of Lee Wood is Ray Vargas. Ahead of him is Gary Russell Jr. Ahead of him, naturally, is Mark Magsayo. Ahead of him is Santa Cruz, and then Navarrete first. Could Lee Wood beat all those guys? I don't know. To be fair. I'd probably pick Lee Wood to beat Josh Warrington. I don't know about Mauricio Lara. I feel like Lara would probably come out better against Lee Wood. Kiko Martinez. Got to see how Kiko Martinez looks against Warrington, because he seems to have a bit more pep in his step again. Yeah, Hatman, the Jermaine Taylor fight. Was that the fight that kicked off the what was it? The Super Six. That was that like 2009? Because time flies, man. Time flies. It's so scary. I want to check I have a thing about dates. Like pretty much, a lot of people keep a diary of things to remember, or they keep a journal and stuff like that. I base my life off of boxing dates, so I can, see Jermaine Taylor. That fight against Carl Froch was April 2009. It's a long time ago. Crazy. Iron Fist. Yes, yes. Good evening. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Hope to see more good matchups like Wood Conlon. Yeah, like I remember when it was first announced, I was kind of like, because it came out in what do you call it? DAZN's like lineup. They announced it, and I was like, it's a good fight. It's nothing special. But yeah, I think it was a good scrap. It wasn't like the best fight I've ever seen, but it was a good, very dramatic performance, obviously, from both guys because you had drama in the first round, drama in the last round, and yeah, it's hopefully it sets the tone. People are like willing to get themselves into competitive fights because a lot of the time you see it. I remember in 2017 in particular, that was a super busy year. Like every month of that year, there were just like big fights and competitive fights. I remember that year kicked off in January with DeGale versus Badu Jack, and they had that absolute war. And it's like it kind of set the tone for the rest of the year because then um, who else was there? You had that fight in January, and then in March you had Hay versus Bellew. You had in April Joshua versus Klitschko. May you had Brook versus Spence. June you had the rematch between Ward and Kovalev. July you had Mikey Garcia versus Broner. What else? There were so many fights that year. And then in December you had Rigo versus Lomachenko. So hopefully it sets a trend like that and people are like, yeah, I want some of that action. Hatman Wood is very, very limited. Yeah, he is. Like, and everyone was talking about, oh, he's so talented. He's so this, he's that. No, he's not. He isn't. Has he got heart? Yes. Is he tough as old boots? Yes. But he's not very skilled. He has flashes where he looks okay, but nothing special. What do you think of Kiko versus Warrington? Could Kiko produce another unexpected win? I think potentially he could. Potentially he could. Oh yeah, of course. Triple G versus Canelo in 2017. How could I forget? Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, I think there's a good chance that he beats Warrington. Could he beat Warrington by stoppage? Like similar to how he did to um, Kid Galahad. I don't know, because with Kid Galahad, like many Ingle fighters, he kind of fights a bit one-paced. Like if you look at the pad work he does with Dominic Ingle, it's very rhythmic and it's very like constant on one pace, which has its benefits. Because like if you can start that pace and finish with that pace, it shows you have a good degree of like fitness. Um, you're in good condition, but it's easy to get caught out. You can get caught cold, which I feel like kind of happened to Kid Galahad. Whereas with Josh Warrington, I feel like he fights at a bit more of a faster pace, so maybe he can be a bit more difficult to pin down. But I do think there's a good chance that Kiko could rough up Warrington because you have to imagine that Warrington's still kind of dealing with the demons of the Lara fight because it wasn't even like he was able to exercise those demons in the rematch. He like as Hatman pointed out, he seemed kind of relieved. Yeah, he put on a sad face, like, oh, I'm so gutted I couldn't get revenge. But yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that he was I think there was a degree of relief there. So um yeah. Yeah, see, there were a lot of fights in 2017. A lot of fights. Really good year. Very expensive year though, of the pay-per-views they had in this country. And I didn't pay for a single one. Iron Fist. Oh, skipped. What do I think of AJ apparently staying with Sky? A major blow for DAZN. Yeah, DAZN is looking a little bit looking like DAZN's on the ropes a little bit, or at least feeling the pressure at least. Because the thing is, hold or have I just lost my point? I feel like AJ is obviously, his fights have been on Sky since the beginning, and so there's clearly a good working relationship there. And with the Zone, I feel like they're not a big platform. I think we just have to be honest. Is it a good platform? Yeah. Is it affordable? Absolutely. Have they put on good fights? Absolutely. But are they still a fledgling platform? At least in the UK, I want to say. I can't really talk about the States. But in terms of AJ staying with Sky, I think you kind of see, how am I going to word this? How has this question tied my brain up in knots? I feel like, Hatman, as you point out, Eddie Hearn is feeling the pressure because his demeanor's changed. He's not so jovial and happy-go-lucky and cheeky-chappy anymore. He's looking around and he sees that his contemporaries, his rivals, let's be real, they're gaining on him. Like Frank Warren selling out Wembley. Like, I didn't think I was going to see that in my lifetime. I thought Frank Warren was like kind of done, and his, you know, the most extravagant thing he could do was probably sell out the O2 or something like that. But to sell out Wembley, which is something that in recent years has only been done by Eddie Hearn. So I think it is a blow for DAZN. However, it depends on what Canelo does, because he's kind of like an Anthony Joshua, or he's bigger than Anthony Joshua in the States, you have to imagine. Well, you don't have to imagine, he is. So as long as he has some kind of connection with Eddie Hearn, and then maybe as long as Canelo continues to endorse Eddie Hearn, maybe that's good enough. But for the most part, yeah, I do think it's a significant blow to DAZN. Kryptonite, good to have you here. I like how you came onto my stream to ask for more Hatman live streams. So yeah, we do need more Hatman live streams. Hopefully I can entertain in the meantime though. Iron Fist, yes, good observation. I think pad work is a bit overrated. Don't like it when training, always prefer the heavy bag of sparring. Yeah, this is something I was thinking about the other day. I feel like with your training methods, they're only going to be as good as you make them. And a lot of people do pads the wrong way. Like, or not necessarily the wrong way, but in a less effective way. I feel like as you become more experienced, your emphasis on certain training methods will change. So I do think that pad work is a very beginner friendly method, because you can you're able to teach positioning to your beginner fighter, because the pad obviously represents the target being the head the majority of the times. And so what you learn to do is you learn to, as a beginner fighter, which punch goes where, like which punch works for which position, basically. So say if you have an orthodox fighter who is working with a trainer who's also in the orthodox position, that trainer is going to hold his right hand kind of to the right side of his face, obviously. And so what that's going to do, that's going to symbolize and represent when your opponent's head is more over their back leg, their right leg, if they're an orthodox. And therefore you learn to find your punching range, and also condition yourself to punch or use that particular punch when your opponent's in that particular position. But as soon as you've learned that, you don't really need it. Like, you can kind of take the pad work and exchange it for work on the double M bag, which is a lot harder for a beginner fighter. But yeah, I mean, pad work is pad work, you know. But it does come down to how you use it. Uh, Lara's a serious puncher, puts everything into every shot. Yeah, that's the Mexican way, isn't it? It's either loads of punches or some punches that are very hard. So yeah, very crude though. He's quite rough. You know, he's not like um, he's not refined, but he just goes for it, and he'll smash you to bits if you stand in front of him. Mr. Relax, did you see Virgil Ortiz versus McKinson fight off? Juan Carlos Salgado may replace Ortiz Jr. Yeah, I saw that this morning, to be honest. And I don't want to sound like a dick because McKinson's obviously just missed out on the biggest fight of his career, but I wasn't particularly looking forward to that fight because McKinson is just someone I really struggle to watch. And I think I've said that every live stream. I really don't like watching him. There's something just off-putting about the way he moves and his style. Yeah, but yeah, man, I feel for him because he's probably just trained his nuts off for months to find out that Ortiz is pulling out. And apparently, it's like take it with a pinch of salt, but it's something serious. Like Ortiz Jr.'s got some kidney problem or something. Which, to be fair, that doesn't sound too far fetched because he is big at the weight. So, is there dehydration? Is there overtraining? There's because when you overtrain, you can bring about this condition called rhabdo. I believe it's rhabdomyosis or rhabdomyolysis, rhabdomyolysis, I believe you pronounce it. And that is a serious condition. And you get it from overtraining. Just to read you the description on Google, the breakdown of rhabdomyolysis is the breakdown of muscle tissue that leads to the release of muscle fiber contents into the blood. These substances are harmful to the kidney and can often cause kidney damage. So maybe that's what Ortiz Jr. is suffering from. I'm just speculating, but I heard it's a kidney issue, and he's big for the weight, so he's dehydrated, probably overtraining because so many fighters overtrain. Like there's kind of like a culture of overtraining in boxing. It's very stupid, but it's very common. Iron Fist, as Hatman said, Warren is indeed a survivor. Yeah, he is. Like this man he is just murderously competitive. Like he will not be denied. He is, you know, and he's like, he's not a nice man, Frank Warren, but you have to give it to him. Like he's gotten where he is by not being very nice. He's he has no give at all. They do pads like boxer size, throw a million punches as fast as possible, no real power or good form. Yeah, that's it. It's you see that so often. How many times do you see 1 2 1 2 1 2? Okay, 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, and then 1 2 3 roll 1 2 roll. Like there's a particular gym in North London that I went to, and I'm not gonna say any names because I just don't think they deserve the exposure. Not to say that you guys are gonna go there and check them out, but I'm not even gonna dignify them by giving them airtime on my channel. But they just on the pads, it was 1 2 roll, 1 2 roll, 1 2 left hook roll. Like that was all they did. All they did. Like there was literally they couldn't comprehend you doing anything else. And it was just throw every punch as hard as you can. Like pads are very limited. Like you don't really learn to feint effectively. That's something that ideally comes from sparring. Um, you can make it work on pads, but it's going to be very deliberate, which there's nothing wrong with, but there are just better ways of doing certain things. But yeah, you often see pads done like boxer size. Warren's actually got more British heavyweights than Hearn. Yeah. Do you think maybe Hearn has kind of taken his eye off the ball and thought, okay, I've got AJ, I'm working with Dylan, I don't really need any more like decent level heavyweights? Because does he have a couple of prospects? I think maybe Hearn just has kind of lost touch with what people actually want to see in boxing. Who knows? Kovalev versus Pulev on Triller. Surely not. Surely not. I need to search this because that sounds like some April Fool's stuff. Kovalev versus Pulev. I'm not. Um, no way. What? Fight Hub TV and Fight Hyper just wait. It's Turval Pulev. It's not. It's not Kubak Pulev. It's his brother Turval, who's a cruiserweight, I believe. Because I believe Turval Pulev fought at heavyweight in the amateurs, not super heavyweight. But still, that is weird. That is a weird fight. Yeah, overtraining is a big problem. A lot of fighters don't even realize they're overtraining. Yeah, that's a good point. Obviously, a lot of fighters, they don't understand what overtraining is. So, like a lot of people, I've worked in a lot of gyms, and like pretty much my entire life and career has revolved around exercise and sport and stuff. And a lot of people believe, I shit you not, that overtraining is a myth. Like it's some kind of cop out or some coping mechanism that people use so they don't have to train hard. Is so it's stupid. It's bizarre. Of course you can overtrain. Your body only has finite resources before it like breaks down. And what I've seen though, there's like a culture of, and Iron Fist, exactly that. Overtraining in combat sports. Like I've met so many people and they're aware of what overtraining is, but they believe that as long as I destroy my body before a fight, I'm going to be, I'm in the best possible shape to win that fight. It's like, no, you donut. You're just going to basically deplete yourself of all the resources your body has, basically miss out on quality training time while damaging your body and organs, and then go into a fight. But oh no, I push for the burn. Like I basically work myself into the ground before my opponent can do it. And then I'm going to go and fight that opponent. And it's like, what? Like, train smart. Don't just train hard. Like, you're not going to be like, a lot of it comes down to like the long distance running as well, which is so stupid. Like, I don't understand why boxers do long distance running. It's just one of those stereotypes that has to go. Like some people, they can run for miles. Usually the lighter guys, they can run for miles and their body doesn't break down. Me personally, I used to do like, I'm not a long distance runner of any kind, but I could always like, I could spar rounds, round, go on the bag for a round. Pads, not so much. But like I had some decent fitness, but my joints, I'd feel weak, I'd feel drained after running a 5K. But then I could spend half an hour doing hill sprints, and it's like my body liked it. It was like I was giving my body the activity that it was made for. So obviously people are kind of, they're made for different things, they have different affinities. Um, but I think overall, the long distance running culture in boxing, it's silly because say you run a 5K or something, that doesn't, the how can I say it? The intensity and the fluctuation in intensity doesn't match the or that of a boxing match or even a sparring match. It doesn't. In a boxing match, you're working for 3 minutes max, but within that 3 minutes is higher intensities, lower intensities. So if you're going to say do running, don't do long distance running. Do some kind of interval training, like fartlek training, which is speed play. So what you can do is you walk, then you jog, then you sprint, then you walk, jog, sprint, walk, jog, sprint, something like that. It doesn't have to be in a pattern like that. You can sprint, then walk, then jog, then sprint, then jog, whatever. But it matches the kind of profile of intensity of a boxing match, which is just it's suitable, it's specific, or more specific. But yeah, don't get me started on training practices because I'll talk for hours. Hearn's success has gone to his head, made him complacent 100%. Yeah, I think and a lot of things that Hearn has done, like with the whole DAZN game change business, I got so sick of hearing that flipping catchphrase, game change, game change. You haven't changed anything. You've actually taken a step backwards, Maya Jama, Darren Barker and his little fake mate. That's not game changed. The fights they've announced, that's not game changed. That's bang average, Even I don't know if you saw the screenshot of Showtime's latest announcement of the fights they've got from March right through to like the summer. That's good. That's a good lineup. Let me see if I can find it in the meantime. But yeah, Hearn's a bit lost, I think, We always talk about AJ being kind of out in the wilderness. Hearn I think he's definitely losing his grip. Vinny Pazienza was overtrained, over party. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, recreational drug use is quite high in boxing, I think it's because a lot of people in boxing, they come from like, what do you call it? A background of being like on the streets and not being that educated. Maybe that's it, but I don't know. A lot of people in boxing, they kind of see it as a rite of passage and like a seal of approval if you have like social issues and like addiction and stuff. It's a little bit silly of me to say, but it's what it kind of seems like. Like nobody likes to be the kind of middle class guy who gets into boxing because he enjoys it. It's always got to be, oh man, my upbringing was so tough, and boxing was all I had. I do it because I have to, Okay, I mean I've heard it like a million times before. Like say Anthony Joshua, for example, and like I don't want to rag on him too badly because he's clearly he's clearly quite lost at the moment. But like if you hear how they market Joshua, and they have done for years, they always say, hailing from North London. Like, and when they do his bio, like on the rough streets of London, it's like, well, firstly, AJ isn't from London. He might live in London now, but he's actually from Watford, which it's not a particularly rough area. Is it a nice area? I don't know. Maybe some parts are a little bit rough, but it's not this slum that it's made out to be. But that's why that's why I like Lomachenko and Usyk, because and fighters like that, because they do boxing because they love it, and they're like, I love boxing, and because I love it so much, I want to give my best and go down in history. None of this, oh man, I had to escape the streets and blah 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 blah. Yeah, that happens, but it doesn't mean anything. Overtraining is common in combat sports compared to other sports. Yeah, indeed it is. That's the fighting culture, I think. Whoever says overtraining doesn't exist is either juice head or hasn't trained hard for a prolonged amount of time. Yeah, that's usually it, because obviously when you're on the juice, when you're on any kind of gear, you're you can get away with so much. Like look how bodybuilders train compared to the average kind of gym goer. It's the programming, if you can call it that, because there's not really any program in sight, of bodybuilders is so primitive, but they can get away with it because they're being boosted by chemistry, I guess that because on a fight you get physically assaulted, fighters need a psychological boost by overdoing it. Maybe, but I feel like the psychological boost that you may receive, it's not worth it, to be honest, because your body is a very robust, human beings are very robust organisms, but you become even more robust by challenging yourself incrementally and progressively overloading your abilities, not by just going from 0 to 101 and running yourself into the ground, you know. So it's it certainly is a mindset thing though, you know. But then it's like, oh, you know, if you're not doing your morning miles, you're mentally weak. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you only run 5 miles a day. You don't run 6 because you're mentally weak. And then, oh, the next guy's running 7 miles, so I have to run 8. But the next guy's running 9 miles, so I have to run 10. It can go on indefinitely if you use that whole mentally weak mindset cope. So just train smart, man. Just train smart. That's that's today's pro tip. Train smart. Make of it what you will. Okay. What else did I say I was going to talk about today? Because I haven't got any questions come through. So I've spoken about Lee Wood versus Conlon. Good fight. I felt that Lee Wood kind of performed at the level I expected him to because he's not the most technical or talented fighter. Mick Conlan, I felt, really took his game to another level. However, from a technical point of view, if you want my technical insight of what went wrong for him, um, he was a very dynamic target. He was constantly moving his head, as Hatman pointed out in his post-fight video. The way he would slip to his back foot, so basically load the weight onto his left leg, and then shoot the left hand from there. So that's a full-blooded power shot. And obviously, because he was slipping and then throwing the shot first, it kind of threw Woods off a bit. But however, despite he had this really good head movement and was clearly very sharp and athletic, which we know he is, you know, there was a very low volume of straight shots, you know, and those don't have to be power shots. If you want, check out the study I did on Dmitry Bivol's heavy bag work, because Bivol, he has those straight shots down pat, where he's in, straight shots out, straight shots, you know, those very direct shots. You know, you jab your right hand, so your jabs and your crosses. With Colin, those were missing. So he was lucky that Lee Wood wasn't a bit more proficient at long range, because if Lee Wood had a better understanding of bridging the gap between him and Conlon, Conlon would have been in some serious trouble. But he got away with it because Lee Wood's no better at that game than he is. Also, he'd voluntarily move himself onto the ropes and try to do that kind of Mayweather turn away from this punch, turn away from that punch, constantly. I don't understand why fighters do that. I mean, there's probably reasons like, you know, they want to show off, they want to get some kind of psychological edge, like, here, I'm going to corner myself and you can't hit me. But that's a last resort defense. You know, don't go out of your way to put yourself in that position and use that kind of defense. Use it when you really have no other choice. What else from Conlan? So yeah, like in the way his guard was quite static, which kind of ties into his use of the straight shots, because he just when his sharpness started to go, he didn't really have a way of pinning Lee Wood down, if that makes sense. You know, the speed started to leave him a little bit, the power left him a little bit, maybe Wood got a little bit numb, and the way he was setting up his shots was still the same way. Conlan, this is, he was setting up his shots the same way as he was in the first round, which was very reflex based, you know, very need for speed, if you like. So yeah, and oh, man, the way he got finished, it's good to see that he's okay, because that was that was brutal. So yeah, Michael Conlan, if you watch that or if you listen to this live stream, that's what I recommend you do. Lee Wood, on the other hand, he's got a long way to go if he hopes to like really conquer this division, because he's got the heart, he's got the strength and the power. Maybe he has the chin. but technically he's lacking quite a bit. But anyway, moving on to the next topic, which I believe I wanted to talk about Joe Joyce versus Anthony Joshua. What do we make of that fight? Because I think that's a good fight. And I'm having a tough time thinking about who I think or deciding a winner for that one. So I definitely hope it happens. Definitely. So what do you think, chaps? What do you think of AJ versus Joyce? I think like I can understand why people think that AJ could stop Joyce early because firstly, he did it in the amateurs when they were both uh, less developed than they are now. But also, Joshua is fast for a man of his dimensions. And he's not like just Tyson Fury fast because, you know, when Tyson Fury's on the back foot and he's flicking out his jab, for a man of his size, he's pretty quick, you know, too fast Tyson Fury. But with AJ, he's fast with his power. That's the thing. Um, and Joe Joyce, see, Joe Joyce is someone who I personally think his skill set is underrated. I don't think he's just a big juggernaut. I feel like that title kind of sells him short. Um, he does have skills, and that's why even though he's quite slow and cumbersome, he's so effective in the ring. But yeah, maybe Joshua could catch him cold. 'Cause Joshua's, but then it depends on where Joshua is mentally, because you have to imagine that Joyce is going to bring the pressure because he brings a lot of pressure and he has every punch in the book. He's got straight shots, he's got hooks, he's got uppercuts, body shots, and Joyce can put them together. And there's no doubt in my mind that he's a serious puncher. Um, all right, let's see what you guys are saying. Pretty sure if AJ is in a good place mentally, he can Tico Joyce late. Okay, so Iron Fist, would you say that that's your prediction as of now? AJ late stoppage. Mr. Relax wants to see Joyce versus Fury. Why not? You know, if actually, do I really want to see that fight? Fury, is he on the way up? Is he developing still? Maybe. Um, I don't know how I feel about that fight. I'll get back to you. Pilot on crack. Oh well, I won't be getting on your plane anytime soon. How you doing? First and foremost, thanks for joining us today. In my opinion, Joyce has too little head movement. Together with AJ's confidence from the amateurs, should end up with KO for AJ. Still a close fight. Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like sometimes Joyce gets hit and it's not a good look, but other times he can be deceptively difficult to hit because, especially, he has a good way of kind of fading out of an engagement, and he'll keep his shoulder there, like in front of him, and he'll just roll his way out. But he hasn't fought anyone who is as explosive as AJ. Who would you say that Joyce's best opponent has been so far? Dubois, but Dubois, in my opinion, was very limited. Like because that fight was postponed and rescheduled a few times, and every single time I was confident that Joyce would win. I thought it was actually a mismatch, but I didn't have my channel back then, so you guys are just gonna have to take my word for it. But I was very confident that Joyce would beat um, uh, Daniel Dubois. So I don't think it's really fair for me to say that Daniel Dubois is his best opponent. I'd go with Jennings, and the way Jennings performed there was in that fight was a good one. It was a good performance by Jennings, but I still think that Joyce won pretty handily. Even though he did get hurt early with a body shot from Jennings, and Jennings isn't a massive puncher. So maybe Joyce is weak to the body. Maybe he's susceptible because his chin doesn't really seem to have much give in it, but he hasn't really fought anyone with the power of Joshua. Have you seen the sparring clip AJ was looking like a heavyweight Ray Leonard for a few minutes. Yeah, I mean, AJ does a lot of technical sparring. A lot of people have said this over the years, and that clip kind of reaffirms that. He doesn't really spar hard, which look, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you don't like only do technical sparring. You do need some hard sparring, but yeah, what I'd say though is I certainly understand what you mean, but Joe Joyce, I feel like he's developed quite a lot because I believe that sparring clip was in the lead up to the 2016 Olympics, and I feel like Joe Joyce, his development trajectory has been a really good one since he's been a pro. So yeah, I'd just say that. Yeah, I think AJ can TKO him. I rate Joyce, so he's pretty good. Yeah, you know, I do understand that. If I had to, like, if you put a gun to my head, said who wins, I'd probably go with AJ. But it's an interesting fight because could you imagine if Joyce can take AJ's power? That's going to be a long night for Joshua because, like, Joyce has a serious engine and he does not stop. And he's a good boxer, an underrated boxer for sure. I'm going to attempt to pronounce your name. Gehehib Hehehe. Let me know how I did. Hatman in the building. Yeah, Hatman was here. I'm not sure if he's still here. The numbers the numbers have dipped a little bit, but thanks for joining anyway. So yeah, that's my take on AJ versus Joyce. So it's certainly a fight I want to see, especially when if White is fighting Fury, which I love that fight. I'm so happy it's happening. Honestly, I'm buzzing for that fight, and I'm glad that's happening at Wembley Stadium. You know, we need a big event like this because AJ versus Usyk was a big fight. Obviously, it sold out the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but this fight, you just have to imagine it's going to be like with White, with Fury, with both of their fans in London. It's going to be massive. I can't wait. I hope nothing scuppers this fight. Mr. Relax. Joyce looks like he punches underwater like older Foreman did, but both punch so hard. Yeah, yeah. He can be quite Foreman-esque, though. I think he moves better than Foreman. Though I think at this stage, Foreman might just obviously Foreman's been retired for years, but I feel like at this stage, Joe Joyce probably lacks the wrinkles and that George Foreman did. But yeah, and the thing is, Joyce is a slow guy because, and I feel like people forget this. He's 6'6" and what 260 pounds, but he's naturally like that. He's not like Anthony Joshua or even Dylan White, because those two guys, they're big men, they're natural heavyweights, but they're not necessarily that size naturally. Like they do quite well. Both guys do a lot of weight training to kind of maintain that size and that strength. Whereas Joe Joyce, he's a naturally big man. Like, look at his bone structure. He has the bone structure of like a troll. He's a massive man. He's huge, very dense physique. And yeah, the bigger you are, the slower you are typically. Joshua has to hit Joyce to the body with serious shots, take away his legs, stamina and legs. Yeah, I'm not sure how good Joshua is to the body though. He can tighten his shots up pretty well, you know. He's definitely someone. I mean, we all know this for a fact that he kind of went through his early days of boxing looking up to Mike Tyson. But you can see that he's not only looked up to Mike Tyson, but he's practiced really tightening up his hooks and uppercuts. But body shots, I'm not sure AJ can. I'm not sure he's too proficient with body shots. And body shots are difficult. They're difficult to land a lot of the time. How do you think AJ will deal with his jab? So I'm assuming you mean Joe Joyce's jab. I don't think it's going to be as simple as some people think. I do believe that AJ will have a tough time dealing with Joyce's jab because even though Joyce is slow, he's perpetual motion. He's constantly slipping from one side of the center line to the other, constantly changing the positioning of his guard as well. So he's constantly moving and he understands rhythm and timing. So I expect if this fight happens, I expect the jab of Joe Joyce to actually probably maybe even bust up AJ at times, like bloody his nose and stuff like that. Even though I'm not necessarily picking Joyce, I think he's going to have plenty of success. I'd be quite surprised if AJ just cleaned him out in a round or two or three. I've been saying for years that White should perform better if he dropped below 240. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because obviously White's in his 30s now. What's he like? 33? Or maybe even older. So you have to imagine that he gets to a certain age and it's difficult for him to get down to that kind of weight. However, I understand what you mean. White, I mean, a lot of fighters, they can benefit from maybe dropping a bit of weight. Heavyweights, this is, like Tyson Fury, he performs better when he's a little bit lighter, as does AJ. And you have to imagine that White would be similar too. Yeah, see, he's like weighing anywhere between 250 and 260. But White, he carries a little bit of fat. And he does a lot of weight training to bulk himself up. So, and I feel like naturally Dillian Whyte isn't the most coordinated person. I feel like the weight he is now kind of exacerbates it and throws his coordination and his balance off a bit. White needs to be lightweight and jump on Fury early. Yeah, I see. I think if White comes in too heavy and too heavy by his standards, obviously, I do think there's a good chance that Fury stops him just because White might just be too stationary and not sharp enough. But you have to imagine that he's going to be training like an absolute demon for this fight because he's wanted not only this title for so long, but kind of the chance to fight someone who like is a big name, to be fair. He was chasing Wilder for years, and he kind of, if you look at who Dillian Whyte's facing, he fought Joseph Parker in 2018, Derek Chisora again 2018, Oscar Rivas 2019, Marius Wack 2019, Alexander Povetkin in 2020 and 2021. Those are like, when you're in the know, like you understand boxing, like you're a hardcore fan, you can look at that and you'd be like, what a record that is. But they're not big names, are they? Not massive names. Tyson Fury is a massive name. So it kind of just adds even more intensity, you have to imagine, to Dillian Whyte's preparation. Because you have to imagine he's going to be frustrated as well, having to wait so long. Now he's finally got his chance. And it's going to be in front of, 80,000 people? So, yeah. Should be good. Should be good. So, yeah, spoken about the weekend's boxing that's just passed. Previewed a little bit of the boxing that's going to be coming up. Spoken about AJ versus Joyce. Spoken about a little bit Dillian Whyte versus Fury. Excuse me. Got gas right now. Just had some ginger beer. Excuse me. What else is there to talk about? Because I'm going to go on for a few more minutes. Maybe I'll take this to 7:45. So it gives us like another 10 minutes. What do we want to talk about, folks? Because this weekend's boxing, I'm not sure if I'll do a video. Kind of busy. That's why I wanted to do this live and kind of shoot a few birds with one stone. Regis Prograis versus Mckenna. I think it's a good fight, but I do expect Prograis to win. I have a feeling he may stop Tyro Mckenna. I want to say 7, 8, or 9, something like that. I do think he's probably going to have to break Mckenna down, though. I don't think that's going to be like a. I don't think he'll blow him away or anything. But yeah, just my opinion. Anything you guys want to talk about for the last 10 minutes? Just leave it in the chat. I'll give you an answer. Will you stay up to watch a Lawrence Colley fight again? Zeds. Oh man, Lawrence Colley. Someone who I like his style. Like when he's good, he's like really good. But when he's not, it's like he's so poor, so horrible to watch. Yeah. Okay. It depends who Colley fights. I haven't been too enthused to watch his fights purely because his most recent fights he hasn't really fought anyone of any note. So yeah, it depends who he fights. If he's going to fight Bradis or someone next, yeah, I'm at least going to attempt to watch the fight. If I start watching it and it's a bad one, I'll just turn it off. Iron Fist, what do you think of Kambosos versus Haney if it happens? I think that's a good fight. Who do I think wins that? Because I feel like Haney historically has been someone who I haven't been too impressed with. I feel like he's lacks polish, is a little bit of a Mayweather rip-off because he's kind of grown up in the post-Mayweather era where a lot of people try and be like Floyd and they don't understand. They don't truly understand what it is they're doing. They just see, oh, Floyd, he does this, and he does it like this. As long as I get this technique down pat, I'm good. And it's like, no, you don't understand the thought process behind it. However, against Jorge Linares, I did think people were a little bit harsh. I felt I think Haney did quite well against Linares. He got buzzed and he was on his bike for the last few rounds, but I think he did good. Same against Jojo Diaz. But Kambosos, he surprised me in the Teofimo Lopez fight. So I don't know. This is a tough fight. I certainly want to see it. Maybe I'm tempted to go for Haney. Maybe. But Kambosos, he's probably going to be galvanized. My concern with Kambosos was that I felt he was very centerline heavy. I didn't feel like he really set his shots up well, even though he is quite fast and explosive. So I may be leaning towards Haney by like 5%, so like 55-45 in favor of Haney. Right now, I could change my mind in like tomorrow, but early thoughts, I'm siding ever so slightly towards Haney to win on points. That is. How do I see the Spence Ugas fight? I wouldn't say I'm confident, but I think Ugas has this one. If Spence beat Ugas, that would be quite remarkable because I think Spence has probably lost his best years, and with the accident, with his lifestyle for the past couple of years, I think he has probably knocked off his prime years. And there's just there's so many question marks, so many unknowns about Spence in his condition right now. And Ugas is a tough fight for him to take because Ugas is a good boxer. He understands his way around the ring. He's big. He's strong. Like, look at the way he manhandled Sean Porter, who's a strong guy. And look, not to say that, like, oh, if he can do it to Sean Porter, he can do it to Spence. Maybe Spence is stronger, but Yeah. I'm favouring Ugas for this one, to put it short. I think Ugas has got a very good chance of beating Spence. Don't necessarily know if he'll stop him, but maybe he'll just get Errol Spence to shell up. But I could still see Spence winning, because Spence is a good fighter. But it would, if Spence won, he deserves massive credit because it's something that I'm not confident will happen, even though I can see it in theory happening. So yeah, bit long-winded, but I am favouring Ugas. All right, another 5 minutes, people, and then I'm gonna take my leave, get something to eat. So start wrapping this one up. Any last questions you want to send through? I think this one's shorter than the others that I've done. But been good to chat. We've enjoyed it. Always enjoy these. Errol will retire after Ugas. He's a drunk. Maybe. Maybe he's just like, yeah, I've unified these belts. I don't need to do anything else. I'm retiring. Who knows? Boxing's a strange sport. Or maybe Kryptonite. Maybe he does retire. Maybe he's forced to retire because he's already had some problems with his retina. If that retina gets severed and he goes blind, that's it. Wave goodbye to your boxing license. So who knows? I think Errol Spence retiring soon, it's not unlikely. You know, I don't want to say, oh, it's, there's a strong chance it'll happen, but I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that Errol Spence's career gets cut short. So you got to look after yourself. Who do I think would win a Ruiz versus Parker rematch? That's that's an interesting question. It's one I haven't really thought about too much. Ruiz, if he carries on in the direction he's going, losing weight and getting really sharp, I think he has a good chance of beating Parker. I believe, going off from memory, Parker won the first fight by a majority decision. However, I think it was like, and because of that, a lot of people thought that Ruiz deserved to win. I feel like Parker won that fight pretty well. So I think that's still a close fight, but I would probably edge towards Parker. I think Parker still moves quite well. He's probably adding a few more wrinkles to his game. And Ruiz, he is going in the right direction, but how long can he sustain that? Haven't seen much of Ruiz since the when was that? When was Ruiz's last fight? Let's have a look. Andy Ruiz. Okay, so that was back in May last year. So he's been at the ring for approaching a year. Not a good look. But I mean, the fights hasn't been announced or anything. But I'd probably still favour Parker. But I could see it being another close fight. I think Spence needs to show a lot of heart in the fight. Otherwise, Ugas UD. Yeah. I think it's going to be a rough fight for Spence. Ugas, I think, is going to bring it. And like, Spence is big, but Ugas, I feel he's very, very strong, very physically strong. And has Errol Spence ever really fought anyone to match him for size? There's Kell Brook, but Kell Brook was quite badly weight drained. So you have to imagine that he wasn't as strong as he probably could be. And even then, Spence, early on, when Kell Brook was a bit more energized, Spence wasn't having it his own way. He had to like really chip away at Kell Brook. But other than Brook, he fought Porter, who's much smaller, but is also quite strong. And even Porter had Errol Spence reeling at times. So, yeah, it's going to be a rough fight, I think, for Spence. Because Ugas is a serious hombre. All right, let's call it time, guys. I'm going to head off now, go about my business. But as always, thank you so much for tuning in and keeping me company. on this Wednesday evening. I hope it's been entertaining. Hope you had a good time shooting the shit with me for an hour or so. To the guys who always show up, I appreciate you. To the guys who've only shown up for the first time, I appreciate you just as much. If you haven't subscribed, why not do so? And I'll chat to you guys soon. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a good evening. And till next time, fellas, all the best.